you guys.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. I will first await a motion to leave the non-public and to seal the meeting minutes of the non-public session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Val, will you please call the roll?
I will. Mayor McEachern.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Councilor Tabor.
Here.
Councilor Cook.
Here.
Councilor Denton.
Here.
Councilor Blaylock is not here. Councilor Bagley.
Here.
Councilor Moreau.
Here.
Councilor Lombardi.
Here.
8 present, Your Honor.
And before we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to send and ask the community to think about Sue Thornson, who passed away on June 14th. Many know Bob, who worked in the city for a number of years. Sue was no less involved. Her philanthropy knew no bounds, and she was a steadfast contributor to all of the arts. Portsmouth is poorer for her no longer being with us. I am told that before she passed, she was able to hold her manuscript, Choose Joy, a novel or a book that will be released shortly, and I think it is a fitting tribute, and we should all remember those words, to choose joy whenever possible, and sometimes when it's not possible. So you'll be missed, and we owe you a debt of gratitude. Please join me at the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have these, where do we typically have proclamations?
Yeah, right now would be good.
Great. I'm going to read a proclamation on Juneteenth. Whereas President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation declared that as January 1st, 1863, all those enslaved in the states in rebellion against the Union shall be thenceforward and forever free. But it was not until June 19th, 1865, for that proclamation to take effect in Galveston, Texas, when Major General Gordon Granger of the United States Army gave the order declaring the enslaved to be free. And whereas in October 2003, with the accidental unearthing of the African burying ground that has been paved over, built over, and forgotten beneath a city street, an ongoing effort began to reckon with our history of enslavement, to recognize the presence of Africans in the region before enslavement, and to create the African Burying Ground Memorial Park. And whereas in 2013, New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark sponsored the legislation for New Hampshire to declare Juneteenth as a holiday and brought the bill forward again in 2017 so our representatives could continue to push for state recognition of Juneteenth, a federal holiday since 2021. And whereas in Portsmouth, we are proud to recognize Juneteenth to commemorate centuries of struggle, triumph, and joy, and to remember this critical part of American history as we pay tribute to the achievements and deeply rooted culture of the Black community in our city, we rededicate ourselves to our commitment to being a racial justice municipality. Now, therefore, I, Dagan McEachern, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on behalf of the members of the City Council and citizens of Portsmouth, do hereby proclaim Juneteenth 2024 in Portsmouth and urge all members of the community to learn about the Emancipation Proclamation and the history behind the holiday and to join in celebrations, commemorations, and other programs and tributes organized by community members, including the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire, the Seacoast African American Cultural Center, Black Lives Matter Seacoast, the Seacoast NAACP, the Racial Unity Team, the Business Association for People of Color, and so many others. Given with my hand in the seal of the City of Portsmouth on this 17th day of June 2024. Thank you. Next, we have acceptance of minutes, May 6, 2024, May 13th, 2024, and May 20, 2024.
Your Honor, I move to accept and approve the minutes of May 6th, 2024, May 13th, 2024, May 20th, 2024 City Council meetings.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And now on to public comment, where we have 5 speakers. Joe Calderoda, first up with Historic Preservation Review.
Good evening. Joe Calderola, 170 Dennett Street. I'm here to speak about the item on the agenda to hire a historic preservationist to review the impact of the proposed changes to the HTC ordinance in regards to solar panels. I'm confused by the motion because, as far as I can see, there really aren't any changes. The existing guidelines, this is a quote, this is exactly what the existing guidelines in the HTC guidelines literature says. It says, locate collectors where they are hidden or minimally visible from public view. That's the existing guideline. So the amended ordinance, as far as I can tell, what it does is it takes the guideline, the existing guideline, and makes it part of the ordinance without any changes. It doesn't even change the word minimally. It's still the same word. So I don't understand what's going to be looked into by a historic preservationist. They're going to look at what the impact of not changing the ordinance is on the district. It doesn't make any sense. I think it might have been something that was brought up before the second amendment to the ordinance. So I just wanted to point that out. And I also have a question, if a historic preservationist is to be hired, the wording of the effect on the integrity of the district seemed kind of odd and like a bad fit. You know, integrity, does that mean it's going to break it up? Or was what really is intended there perhaps is desirability or attractiveness to the public or importance to the city or something like that? So I just think it's not something that should be pursued at this time, because it doesn't have any grounds for being. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next up, I am sorry about can't read the first name. Is it Collins?
Yeah. I signed up for the wrong time. I'd like to speak during the whole occupancy ordinance.
Okay, when you have unlimited time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, excellent. We'll be getting to that momentarily. Peter, we're going to come back to you after Irish Mike on flags.
Good evening, Mayor. Michael Harden, Orchard Street. I don't know what the city of Portsmouth has against American flags. I sent an email to Councillor Denton. I don't know if he got it, but for Memorial Day, every other town you went through, they had American flags up. And the memorial by Memorial Bridge, the little memorial park, that like hideous little American flags, and every one of them was touching the ground. And you just brought up Juneteenth Day, and the first African American to get the Purple Heart was William Carney. He was shot several times, and out of all the times he was shot, he never once let the American flag touch the ground. And I've watched multiple councillors walk into this lobby, and you got American flag out here touching the ground. Portsmouth's got enough money, at least get a longer pole so the flag's not touching the ground. And also, if you knew proper flag etiquettes, you wouldn't have the flag that's flying in the middle of Market Square on the flagpole. It's got nothing to do with Pride Month. It's got nothing to do with the gay community or straight community or any other community. And if you're okay with hanging that flag, I petition you as a mayor and also as a father. October is pro-life month, so if you're okay with flying that flag for June, I want to fly pro-life flag for the month of October, seeing it's pro-life month. So they've done it in other towns, and you as a father, and I know there's other parents on the council, you shouldn't have a problem with that. So I'll supply the flag, and I expect to see it flying down there for the month of October. Thank you. And
Irish Mike.
Please raise that flag it's touching the ground.
Next up is Steve Miller on climate change.
Good evening, Steve Miller, 38 Thornton Street. I just wanted to take a second to talk about climate change and how important it is to address it as an issue for all humankind. But climate change affects everything. It affects our agriculture, it affects our social lives, it affects our economy, our natural resources, it's extremely important that we give people the chance to participate in the solution and try to stem climate change. And so I really support anything you can do to help citizens participate in being part of the solution to climate change. We just have to address it. And anything we do isn't about telling somebody else what to do. It's about giving them the opportunity to participate in the solution. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Steve. We're going first to Zoom with Ken Goldman, who is also a Portsmouth resident, and then back to Peter.
Yeah, good evening, Ken Goldman, 271 Islington Street. And excuse me for speaking early on the home occupation ordinance, but I really have to run to something else this evening, and I just wanted to have a chance to speak in support of it. Arts are important to Portsmouth, as are the people who make the arts. Arts and the people who make the arts bring in tens of millions of dollars in revenue to the city every year, and perhaps more importantly, enrich all of our lives. When we think of the arts, we need to think beyond the large venues such as Music Hall, Strawberry Bank, Prescott Park, and the various theaters, and also think about the small independent artists. Approval of this ordinance is one way to help support the arts and keep these artists in Portsmouth. Allowing artists to teach small classes in their home reduces the financial burden on the artists and gives them more opportunity to provide artistic exposure to the community. Looking at the Portsmouth, New Hampshire Cultural Plan, I see that this ordinance supports three of the pillars: resources for arts and culture, communications, and community engagement and education. Therefore, I strongly support adoption of this ordinance, and I hope that the City Council will as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right, and coming back to Peter Sullivan, and apologies if I mispronounced your, is it? Gilligan. Gilligan, okay, sorry, I thought that was an S, from East Kingston. And unable to read the topic, but on the fire station, I believe.
I just wanted to thank you for the weather was good enough so that I could photograph your brand new fire station down there, and it is a privilege to be able to photograph that and show it. It's a beautiful station. You, Mr. Mayor, and all the councilors did a great job, and I will send you the pictures as soon as I have them developed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right. Let's see. We are now on to the public hearing on home occupation ordinance. This is a public hearing, second reading on proposed ordinance amending Chapter 10, Article 4, Section 10.440, Table of Uses, Residential, Mixed Residential, Business and Industrial District, Section 19.22, and Article 15, Section 10.1530, Terms of General Applicability regarding home occupation. And I see we have Peter Stith getting right into the presentation, wasting no time, wanting to watch the Celtics, I'm sure.
You stole my comment. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is the second reading and public hearing for these relatively minor amendments that should have a kind of a big impact on the home occupation use within the city. Next slide, please. The initial referral was made to the Planning Board by the City Council on February 20th. And the Planning Board has had a public hearing on April 25th and made some changes to the proposed language, which came back to City Council for their first reading on May 6th. But first, I want to, next slide, talk about the current regulations that are in the zoning ordinance. We have two types of home occupations, home occupation 1 and home occupation 2. And both of these must meet all the criteria laid out there. They must be accessory to a use within a dwelling. Their maximum area of 300 square feet, no outdoor storage, and outdoor parking is a maximum. You can only have one space for each type. And then no deliveries by vehicles with more than 2 axles. And the difference between a home occupation 1 and a home occupation 2 is that a home occupation 2 can have one non-resident employee. But if you look at the definition of home occupation 1, there's no client, vendor, or general public visitation. And what we're changing with these amendments will alter that for both types. But if you go to the next slide, you'll see that home occupation 1 and 2 are both under accessory uses. Home occupation 1 is currently permitted in the majority of zoning districts. Home occupation 2 is allowed by special exception in the residential districts, and then is permitted elsewhere in some of the more commercial and mixed-use districts. Next slide, please. So the proposed amendments will change home occupation 2 to a conditional use permit, where it currently requires a special exception. And home occupation will allow up to 2 visitors at any one time, and home occupation 2 will allow no more than 6 at any one time. And the planning board thought that home occupation 2, elevating that to 6 clients, that should then be under their purview for the conditional use permit. If you only have 2, it would still be by right under the home occupation 1. The parking requirement did not change because they didn't want to, expand parking in residential zones. So these uses are supposed to kind of be innocuous and hidden because there's no signage allowed, there's no outdoor storage, and they did not want to increase the parking requirement. And that's really the gist of the whole amendment, so I'll take any questions you have.
Seems like a great amendment, short and sweet, big impact.
Yeah.
Any questions for Peter before we open up to public comment?
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Now, open is public comment. Please just rise, state your name. Any thoughts you have? You are not limited by the timer, but 3 minutes is always an effective amount of time to speak.
I think I could do it in a minute and a half. Good evening, Your Honor and City Council members. My name is Karen Rosania, 32 Boss Ave. I'm a local artist and current member of the Arts and Cultural Commission. And I am also here representing the Commission in support of changing the definition of home occupation. The proposed changes will allow artists to teach small classes in their home studios. We heard loud and clear from residents, artists, and several large nonprofit art venues that making this change will help attract and retain artists to Portsmouth. This is good for the community and it's good for business. If artists come to Portsmouth or can afford to stay here, maybe we don't need to go across the country to find as many performers or exhibitors. We are also learning about several buildings currently housing various types of artists that have their leases coming up for renewal, and it is anticipated that the rents will be significantly higher, or these same buildings are, or other buildings are expected to sell and be redeveloped. And the question is, where are all these artists going to go? So tonight, the proposed changes to the definition of home occupation are very timely and may allow an artist to teach small visual, theatrical, or musical classes in their home studio and stay in Portsmouth. It also will enrich the artistic offerings across the city, so individuals at all levels of artistic savviness can find amazing art classes here and not need to look to other cities, towns, or states, which really is the case now. You really have to go outside of Portsmouth for a lot of different art classes. So I just wanted to thank all of you for your attention to this opportunity and really for helping to keep Portsmouth out in front as a hub and leader in the arts. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any other speakers, 2 for or against?
Good evening, Your Honor and City Council members. My name is Doka Collins. I live in 111 Willard Ave. I'm a longtime Portsmouth resident of 28 years, and I love taking art classes of any kind. I miss our old Portsmouth adult ed. We used to have a very vibrant adult ed program, and that's gone. Currently, I drive to Kittery, Elliott, and even to York for classes, and I would really love this proposal to go through. I would love to take opportunities without having to drive out of state. I'm piggybacking on Karen there, but and I would take my bicycle, so parking is no issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Doku. Any other speakers, 2 for or against?
Yes, thank you, councilors. I'm Jeffrey Cooper. I live at 227 Park Street. I also am for the amendment, the changes. I am on the commission along with Karen, and I was also with Karen on the group, in the subcommittee that created the Cultural Arts Plan, which you've all received. And I was on the part of the group where we did public input, and we got a lot of public input from the artists in the community. They were very happy to step up and give their input, and a major part of their input from the artist community was to do things to make it easier for them to earn a living and live here in Portsmouth. And this ordinance would go a long way by expanding and lowering the barriers towards home occupation. So I certainly hope that we'll have a unanimous vote tonight, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Any other speakers?
Good evening. Hello to the mayor and the city council. And my name is Monica Greenleaf, and I have lived in Portsmouth since 1985. And I've seen a few changes over the years, many of which I'm very happy with. And I am retired from the field of special education, so that gives me a couple of areas of interest in this particular motion. One, in terms of having been in special education, I know that some of these art classes are going to be reaching out to people with a whole variety of needs and a whole variety of abilities. And I'm thrilled about that because I'm very aware of the population and how challenging it can be at times for children and adults with special needs to be included in classes and hobbies and things in any community. So I'm very happy that that is a possibility with this in-home art class situation. My other area of interest is that I'm retired, and so I have time for art as well. And I would very much like to be able to do that locally as possible. I'm currently taking a class in Northampton, which is nice, but wouldn't it be nicer if it were close to home? And so I would like to see this pass with flying colors, and I do hope that that we'll be seeing these artists staying in town and offering many opportunities to the residents of Portsmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Any other speakers, to, for, or against? And seeing none on Zoom, I will close the public hearing. Any further council questions or deliberations? Councilor Cook.
Your Honor, I move to pass second reading of the proposed zoning amendments regarding home occupation and schedule third and final reading at the July 15th, 2024 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm thrilled that the council is considering this change tonight. It had been in the original cultural plan for the city, which has been over 20 years since that was originally adopted, and we didn't move forward with changes over that time period. And so it was definitely time to address this need in the city of Portsmouth. And I hope that these changes tonight do pass and that they really are kind of the impetus for supporting more arts in our community and supporting our artists in a way that allows them to stay in Portsmouth for the long term.
Councilor Cook. And it looks like you will have the final word on that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Councilor Bagley, or Councilor Cook.
Your Honor, I'd like to suspend the rules and pass third and final reading of the changes to home occupation.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And now we have to
Actually, do the motion.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to pass third and final reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Sure you don't want all these nice people to come back next week? We can do it? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Thank you very much. Now we are on to the city manager's items which require action. City Manager Kennard.
Thank you, Mayor, and I have a bunch tonight, so I will be brief and hopefully very informative. Item number 1 is a request for an extension of a temporary construction license for 8 KPH LLC for work at property known as 70 Maplewood Avenue. As you can see, the owner is constructing a 4-story mixed-use building, and in order to construct the foundation, install the appropriate infrastructure, and maintain safe buffer zones, the owner sought a license to encumber the sidewalks that abut the property along Maplewood and Deer Streets. The council granted the owner the initial license request back on December 18th of 2023, and the license term will expire this July 8th. In a letter from the owner, and for primarily public safety reasons, he has requested a 150-day extension of the current license to the sidewalk encumbrance. So what that would do is bring us to, apologies, it would bring us 150 days forward for a total license fee of $12,915. We have found that the temporary pedestrian crosswalk along Maplewood and Deer, which has been maintained well and has also functioned to serve the 4 construction projects in the area. The legal planning and public works departments all support this license extension.
Your Honor, I'd like to move that the city manager be authorized to execute and accept an extension of the temporary construction license to encumber the sidewalks along Maplewood Avenue and Deer Street that abut 70 Maplewood Avenue was requested.
Second.
I just have a quick question on this. Is this on the north side of Deer? Is this on the, I'm just trying to remember where.
North of Deer. The really steel one.
It's on the bank side, where the eye doctor was. And
Yeah, okay, so it's on there. Is there any chance that we could have, as it moves forward, the I guess, on Maplewood, carving out the separation between what's going on Deer and Maplewood?
Well, I know the project owner is here. If we could ask him directly, does that make sense? Your
Oh,
Honor?
sure, yeah.
Come on up.
He's hiding over in the corner there.
Good evening.
Evening, Tom.
Tom Ballin, 233 Vaughn Street, Portsmouth.
So the question is, understand we have Deer and Maplewood. Is there an ability to prioritize getting the Maplewood crosswalk? I just see a lot of folks just doing that, skirting around the side. Is there anything that we could do in there?
We can prioritize it, but it might shorten it by 30 days or 60 days. It wouldn't shorten. So what we found, now that we're building a real brick building, 55 feet up, is that we don't want bricks falling on people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
we could accelerate Maplewood in favor of Deer, though. That's possible, yes.
Okay, great.
We'll do what we can.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Councilor Cook, another question for Tom?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. This question is actually for the city manager. There's a lot of construction in that area. Are we finding that there's any impediment to reaching the garage?
We have not, and it's fair to say that staff has been closely monitoring this. There are still regular meetings between the 4 project proponents, and any concerns would be brought up at those regular meetings. So it is something we are certainly sensitive to, and we'll continue to keep an eye on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think noting the amount of coordination that the city has been involved with the different projects that are happening between different private entrepreneurs has been good to see. Any other questions on this? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 2 is a lease extension request for the 3 community campus tenants for whom the lease extension expires on June 30th, 2024. You will recall that we had accepted gladly the assigned lease agreements for 3 of the tenants from the previous owner of the property, Foundation for Seacoast Health. We've extended all of those to June 30th, and what we are doing now is working with the respective boards of directors of those 3 organizations, namely Seacoast Outright, Krempel Center, and Child Advocacy Center of Rockingham County. Now that we best understand the work that we can do utilizing ARPA funds and CDFA grant funds to reconfigure the space and maximize efficiency for those tenants. So now that we understand what we can do for all of the tenants, we have finalized all of those agreements in terms of what space will be accommodating whom. We will use the next 2 months to finalize the new lease agreements for all three entities, for which we are very glad to have as tenants, and they will be presented back to council for approval in August. So the request is to extend all of the lease agreements through August 31st, 2024.
Is there a motion?
I move to accept the extension of amendment to lease agreements with Seacoast Outright, Krempel Center, and Child Advocacy Center of Rockingham County.
Second.
Counselor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do we know, Council, this is again a question for the city manager. Do we have an idea when the improvements will be completed and when the tenants would be moving?
That's a good question. It's a little bit of a work in progress and rolling as we are able to work with the contractor. That will be a point of negotiation as part of the lease agreements, but I can't specify the work to be done for each tenant right now, but the idea is as quickly as possible. We also have an obligation to obligate and expend all those funds, so it will be as expeditious as possible. I don't know if Peter or Suzanne have a sense of how quickly the tenant space fit up will occur relative to the lease agreements.
Suzanne Woodland, Deputy City Manager, and Peter will correct me if I get anything wrong. So we're hoping to bring the actual legal documents to you in the next 2 or 3 months, or 2 months, whatever the extension is. We're pretty close. It's just we're trying to update all of the tenant rules and kind of get one common template, and it's just taken a little longer. But we have final or just about final plans for where all of the tenants, their rooms are shifting somewhat to have greater efficiencies. But we have the construction manager under contract. They're already beginning some small scope of work to help relocate Seacoast AIDS Response from this building over there in August. And so we're just waiting for sort of the next chunk to begin. And the expectation, last we talked with the construction manager, is that all of the work that we envision at Community Campus would be done probably no later than August of next year. So they're ready to roll.
So I have a follow-on. So are we expecting or anticipating an extension of their leases for that year's time while they're, before they move into new space, kind of in their existing space, and then looking at additional lease once they move?
We're trying to hopefully use the same lease document and just reflect that it has phases, if you will. So there's while you're in the space and then what it's going to look like when you're in your final space. But that's part of the reason why it's taken so long, because we've been trying to find the best mechanism to account for and properly tee it up. Plus, not all of them are the same. So, for example, the Seacoast Community School, their lease actually doesn't end until December of this year. So we've got the 3 that are on your agenda that are ending at the end of this month, and then we just need the extension. So kind of bits and pieces here.
I just should say that the reason I'm asking this question is I know that for their tax exemption purposes as nonprofits, I just want to make sure that they understand the valuation of their rental space, and so when they're applying for their nonprofit tax relief, that they can do that adequately based upon whatever lease they have in place.
We've had conversations with them earlier this year about filing their paperwork timely with the assessor's office to get that exemption. So we had that conversation, and I'm sure we'll be having it again almost every year as a reminder of what needs to be done. So,
thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Morone.
I'd just like to amend the motion to include that it's through the term of August 31st, 2024. Just that date wasn't put in there.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 3 is a request for a public hearing at the July 15th City Council meeting, which is your next meeting, regarding a variety of bonding resolutions for projects to begin in fiscal year 2025. Before you are 4 separate resolutions totaling over $53 million. And to summarize them, we are looking for $650,000 for the school facilities capital improvements project, $12.925 million for various city projects through the general fund, $4,050,000 through the water fund, and a recently revised number up $6 million to $35,465,000 for the sewer fund. And a quick note for why we needed to scramble and revisit and revise the packet on Friday is that we were notified by New Hampshire DES late last week, of their allocation for us for a $6 million clean water sewer state revolving fund, low interest loan/grant for the Fleet Street roadway reconstruction project. So in order to be eligible for that, we need to document that we've authorized to accept it by the end of July, and hence scrambling to make this packet to make sure that the public hearing on July 15th reflects that. And if we don't jump at this, someone else will. So we'd like to take advantage of that, and as such, we added the $6 million that would have been in a later out year to upfront to show the council's support for that.
Mayor, I'd like to move to authorize the city manager to bring back for public hearing and adoption the various proposed CIP projects to be bonded as presented for the July 15th, 2024 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah, exciting to get state revolving loan/grant. That's awesome news. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 4 is some good news. We are looking to rescind a portion of an FY24 bond that was issued for the construction of the bike path on Borthwick Avenue. The project has been completed and has an unused balance in the amount of $90,000. So as part of financial housekeeping, we are looking to rescind that amount.
Your Honor, I move to approve rescinding the remaining borrowing authority with regards to the following resolution. Resolution number 15-2023 for $17,350,000, rescinded amount $90,000.
Second?
Any discussion? Questions of the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Great, thank you. Item number 5 is a discussion and a change in how we would procure a product that we initially brought to you as part of the recently adopted FY25 budget via bond financing. And this would speak to the acquisition of tasers and body cameras for the police department. And we have Chief Newport here and Business Administrator Karen Senecal for any questions you all may have. But initially, we thought this capital expense would be part of the bond authorization that we just mentioned that you'd hear and approve hopefully at the July 15th meeting. However, given the way that the process has evolved in working through the contract details with the vendor, we now understand that it should be structured differently and in the way that we have recently looked at subscription-based or SBITA types of procurements and expenses under the non-operating portion of our budget. So the bulk of the cost associated is in the cloud-based subscription service to support and manage this equipment and the video and other data. There is equipment, but those costs are subordinate to the ongoing cloud-based services. So the request of the council is to acknowledge that this is a change in the manner of funding. We would seek this acquisition, and it will be a sole source purchase, and we wanted to be very clear what we were looking to do, that we're not changing what we procure, but how we procure it. There was a question from Councilor Bagley about did we compare this product and this vendor to other vendors, and the police department did did just that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the chosen vendor was chosen among 5. And what I can share is that the Department of Homeland Security assessment on body cameras dated July of 2023 puts this vendor and this product on top. And I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions of the police representatives here tonight.
Okay, so I guess as I understand it, we're moving from like an on-prem where we download the data to the cloud, where the majority of the costs are storage fees in terms of the recordings, et cetera.
That is correct.
All right, this is probably, and this is that SBITA way that we now do financing, where we're able to view those as a ongoing cost, but view them differently in terms of replacing a capital outlay.
Correct, with the depreciated value. Correct.
Okay, all right. Well, this is going to be pretty frequent coming up. But Councilor Morrow.
Your Honor, I make a motion to authorize the city manager to proceed with a 5-year agreement to acquire tasers, body cameras, and the cloud-based subscription service to support and manage the equipment and the video and other data generated by the equipment, which must be stored, tracked, and produced for investigation, prosecution, and public record purposes.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Lombardi and Councilor.
Some of this money was initially earmarked in the CIP for next year. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we're going to have to take some money from this year.
Correct. So the upfront cost, which I believe is 1% of, and Nathan, come on up, please do, is 1% of the total value of the contract, would be encumbered from existing fiscal year monies. And in fact, we need to sign a contract with the vendor in this fiscal year. And if I'm correct, Nathan, the idea behind placing it in the CIP for FY26 would be that we would not need to access it to pay for debt financing until FY26, but now that has changed.
Correct. In the FY25 budget that you've just considered, there was no impact recognized for this. The authorization would have been sought in July, as the manager just suggested. The bonding would have been at the end of the year. First impact financially would have been in fiscal 26. So there won't be any, there wouldn't have been any impact. There won't be any. The $18,000, 18,108, I think, is the 1% that is expected in June. That'll come in this fiscal cycle. And then as you look to the new CIP, you will see an impact there, because the dollars will leave the capital conversation and they will be listed separately under the non-operating as a like SBITA. It's a significant enough dollar that we're talking about putting it on its own line so that you'll be able to monitor it over the years.
Thank you.
Then did you have a follow-up, Councilor Morrow? Or sorry, Councilor Bagley?
I just wanted
I meant Councilor. I said everyone except Councilor Lombardi. But Councilor Bagley, you're up next, and then the Assistant Mayor.
Wanted to kind of highlight the questions I had earlier for the city manager. The company, I think it's now called Axion, but they were originally called Taser. And I wanted to ensure that we weren't going with the package deal that got us tasers and sacrificing the capabilities of the cameras. It looks like there's only 2 vendors that really have a suitable solution for a city like ours, Motorola and this company. And all the research that I looked at, this company came out ahead on the camera side, which was confirmed by the city manager and the people that looked into it at a deeper level. So I'm happy to support it.
Assistant Mayor.
Your Honor, a question for City Manager, potentially Police Chief. When do we assume the implementation and rolling out of the body cams?
That's a great question. I'm going to ask the chief to come up.
And does the second part of that question, Chief, and this may be more for that Karen, does changing the way that we are paying for this delay the project?
No, so changing the way actually allows us to get the product sooner, because the way that it was, Nathan, you can correct me on this, the way that it was in the CIP would have delayed it, which was going to cause some issues with the contract. So doing it this way is going to allow us to get it sooner, and our whole plan was to start getting the equipment probably towards the end of this year and start implementing it after the first of the year.
Thank you very much.
And first of the year. Thanks, Chief.
Now we're going to, I saw Councilor Morrow's hand up earlier before, and then Councilor Cook. I think Chief can't go too far.
Chief, I want to go anywhere.
Mine should be a pretty easy question. I just want to make sure that the total cost is what we had initially planned, that it's not going to overall cost more than what we had planned through the CIP with this change.
The plan, the price is the same.
It doesn't change.
The good news is the price doesn't. The good news is the price doesn't change, but you won't be paying interest over a 5-year bonding for it. We're going to pay it as we go over this 5 years.
Excellent.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor, and this question is for the chief. Do we, on what schedule do we anticipate a need for replacement of the body cams in particular, and will there be an additional cost we need to budget for around that?
So this plan's for 5 years, and during that 5-year cycle, there's a cost in that price that they upgrade the cameras after 2.5 years. So then at the end of the 5-year contract, we will have to probably upgrade again, and then there'll be additional costs from there. But for the 5-year contract, there'll be no additional fees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Happy.
So just like to state briefly, I think this is the future that we will see in a lot of this switch to subscription services and from a IT standpoint, we'll see that in more and more. Subscription revenue is predictable revenue, and companies grow when they have predictable revenue. So this is the future as a city that we will see. What I would like to know in the future, this has nothing to do with this, support this, but I really want to see the city look at procurement from a single point. Like the idea that contract negotiations ultimately should come through one point that has a view of all of this. Decisions should be made at the department level, but we should have specialized folks that are able to negotiate contracts effectively in the Fed and SLED or the state and local government standpoint. We should be getting really good at being able to negotiate and push back on contracts like this. I think that is going to be where we'll see the ability to realize savings over a number of different projects and have the build up the motion from a procurement standpoint of negotiating these long-term subscription schedule agreements. So again, for the future budget, and again, decisions should make in the departments, but the idea that we are not negotiating these from a single source, would like to see that as an opportunity. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 6 is a request to name a private street. There is the development that will commence at 105 Bartlett, and the request from the developer is to name the private street Adorio Way. DPW, as they always do, checks with the state's E911 to confirm there is no issue with this name, and there are no duplicate names with this, with the word Adorio within this zip code.
Mayor, I move to authorize the use of Adorio Way as the private street name for the development at 105 Bartlett Street.
Second.
Any discussion? Do we have any, Councilor Bagley?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that it sounds like the developer's grandmother lived in the North End, which was lost to urban renewal, and this is kind of a way to honor that memory. So I thought that was a nice memorial.
And for the folks watching at home, because of private street, it doesn't go through the normal process of a public way being named and going through the planning board, et cetera. But sounds like a lovely name. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 7 is a request to donate a police Crown Victoria vehicle, and we received a request from the Crown Victoria Museum in Hayward, California, and they asked if we would donate one of our last remaining Crown Vics. And ironically, we are donating, or seeking to donate, a 2011 Crown Victoria police vehicle. I'll just note that I still drive a 2011 car, but I'm not donating that anytime soon. So the request would be to allow, instead of receiving a donation, to actually donate a piece of city asset to this cause.
Your Honor, I move that the city be authorized to donate the police department's Crown Victoria to the Crown Victoria Museum.
Second.
It's the things you learn.
Yeah, look forward to Councilor Moreau.
Just out of curiosity, do we actually get any breaks tax-wise like individuals would by donating anything? Does anyone know?
It is tax deductible, but
Right.
it's not a deduction we can take.
I didn't think so. I was just curious.
Maybe some passes to the museum in Hayward. Councilor Lombardi.
I just want to know who gets to drive it out there.
Oh, they pick it up and carry it.
Hopefully they come pick it up.
They do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 8 is a request for first reading for the annual omnibus ordinance amending Chapter 7, Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking. And this is part of an annual request on behalf of the work that's done all year by the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee. And this year's changes are detailed in the packet, and they address amendments to the parking ordinance regarding no parking, driving on the sidewalk, and speed limits. And we will have a presentation at the second reading and public hearing, which, if the first reading is passed, would be held on August 5th. And looking to support this effort.
Your Honor, I move that the City Council schedule a first reading on July 15th, 2024 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Would this enshrine or note the new yield to pedestrian signs that are up at the Maplewood crossings?
I think those are already enshrined.
They're already enshrined. Great job.
Well, to get the
on
signs
those.
installed.
Love them. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Lastly is a request to schedule a public hearing also on July 15th, which will be a very interesting meeting, to consider the cable television franchise renewal. I want to acknowledge that the chairperson of the Cable and Broadband Commission, Rob Capone, is here. Thank you, Rob, and thank you to the members of the commission for working for as diligently as they did. The proposed agreement is for a 10-year term, which is great in length, between August 1st, 2024 and July 31st, 2034. And the terms of the key terms of the proposed agreement are summarized in your packet. But importantly, the proposed franchise agreement does not give exclusive rights to Comcast. It does allow Comcast to continue to serve existing and new customers without limiting competition. And the work of the commission has taken over a year. They've held public hearings. They've worked diligently with Deputy City Manager Suzanne Woodland. So the request of you tonight, per the law that allows for all this, is to hold a public hearing to support this renewal at the July 15th meeting.
Your Honor, I would move to schedule a public hearing for July 15th to consider the draft cable television renewal franchise agreement with Comcast.
Second?
Any further discussion? Council Morel, then Council Berg.
I'd just like to really say thank you to the committee for the work they've done, and the fact that there is no no monopoly by them is very exciting. So, thank you.
Councilor Berg.
I was just going to say the same thing. It's a pretty lengthy technical
It is.
document, and the committee did a lot of work to
Yeah.
get us a better.
And a longer deal. It's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Kennard. We are on to the consent agenda. Anybody want to?
Your Honor, I would move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Your Honor, I would move to divide the question and separate out consent agenda item E from the others.
Okay.
Second? First,
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we
A
are
through
now
D.
looking to pass A, B, C, and D. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Now for the letter from David Topham, Granite State Wheelers, requesting permission to hold the annual Granite State Wheelers Seacoast Century Bicycle Ride on Saturday, September 21st, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Your Honor, I have to recuse myself because I'm part of an organization that has a conflicting event that day.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Any abstention? One abstention. All right, we are on to presentations and written communications. We have email correspondence.
Your Honor, I move to accept and place on file.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, a letter from Mark McNabb, One Market Square LLC, regarding Haven Court changes.
I move to refer the letter from One Market Square LLC dated June 11, 2024, and the proposed land transfer described in that letter to the planning board for a report back.
A second?
Any discussion? Councilor Morrow.
I just have to say, it sounds like a really great project, and I'm very excited to get more details.
Excited for report back.
All right, and so Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a question for the city manager around this. Is there an anticipated response date?
I don't know. The answer to that is no. But I know that the planning board will take it up in an expedited manner.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, letter from Marie Bodie, McNabb Properties LTD, regarding fees for outside tables and chairs.
Your Honor, I'd move to waive the sidewalk encumbrance fees for 63 tables and 186 chairs for McNabb Properties LTD for the city sidewalk adjacent to 60 Pond Hollow Street for 2024.
Second.
Assistant Mayor.
Your Honor, my understanding from reading this is that this would be in the hearth is it Hearth?
Hearth. Yeah, Hearth.
Kind of garden area, is that correct?
It is.
So my question is, we have had a few establishments, currently Tuscan, or whatever, what was Tuscan Market, and before that was Breaking New Grounds, have had public use tables, but have paid for them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct, okay. So because of that, I would not vote in favor of this, because everyone else pays.
Yep. We'll go to Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think it's really important that we enhance the spirit of community in our city and around town. And one of the ways that we do that is by having public gathering spaces. When a restaurant, and I think that this is a valid argument made by the petitioner, when a restaurant provides tables that are available for use for anyone, whether or not they are eating at the restaurant with food that they can bring in from outside, they're essentially creating a community space, like a community living room, you could say. And I don't think that we should be charging fees for that provision of tables. I don't think that we should charge the fees at the former Tuscan Market space either for the public use tables that are provided. It's different when it's an enclosed space, and we clearly have enclosed spaces for outdoor dining. And then those are used by only those restaurants. And I think that it's fair to distinguish those directly from public use space.
Councilor Bagley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would agree with Councilor Cook. I've always found it, those tables are beloved, and they're not really dedicated to any one restaurant, but one restaurant has to pay to store them, paint them, and then pay the city to put them out, but they can be used by anyone. And I think it's great that that restaurant has done that for, the different restaurants that have been there have done that for decades. So I would be supportive of this request because I don't want to discourage private entities giving open tables to everyone, but I would potentially make a motion to include the Tuscan table, or the tables in Market Square that are not within the corral as well.
Assistant Mayor or Councilor Tabor.
Thanks, Your Honor. A legal question. I know that the tables in Market Square, that's the public realm, that's city-owned property. In this instance, there's a permanent easement for the city to have that as public space, but isn't the underlying property still owned by McNabb?
Yes, but it's a community space easement.
Yeah, we got it for the increased density and height.
Right.
It was a trade.
But they owe it, they own the property in fee, yes, under an
Right. Okay, thanks.
Assistant Mayor.
Question, do we have a number of what potential loss, and the loss in amount of fees would this be? Because we are $75 per table, 25 per chair. Is that the sidewalk encumbrance?
It's 10 per chair.
10 per chair.
I think it said 6,000 in the letter.
It says 6,000
It's
here
6,000, okay.
per year.
Gonna pass the gavel?
Yep.
So I think that it's, I would echo Councilor Cook's idea that these would be not waived, but or they would be not paid, but that's within the power of us as a city council to do for next year. The idea that we would somehow waive a fee that was understood, and we executed that, there's a cost, and the fees are to pay for the efforts of the city to monitor and maintain. We can question whether or not that cost is appropriate or correct, but I think it sends the wrong message to send or to waive fees after chairs have been paid out. I would assume that he has not paid the fee thus then. Is that correct?
Correct.
So he's not paid the fee. He's put the chairs and tables out, and he's now asking us to waive the fee. Seems a little cart before the horse. So I would think that it should be referred to the fee committee to question, whether or not these should be, charged for in the future. And again, should be applied blanket-wide to all of the establishments within the city of Portsmouth, and not to one that has put tables and chairs out before paying a fee and requested that fee not be applicable to that person.
Marie.
Good evening, Marie Bodie with McNabb Properties, and for the record, I would just like to reiterate that the chairs that Tuscan Market puts out are provided by the city, stored by the city, replaced by the city. The chairs and tables that we are speaking of this evening for the waiver, first and foremost, it was only brought to our attention around Memorial Day weekend that the city was asking for an encumbrance permit following the sidewalk encumbrance requirements. And second of all, the tables and chairs are purchased by McNabb Properties, Dagny Taggart in particular, the building owner of 60 Penn Hollow. They are stored on our property. They are placed by our staff. They are maintained and cleaned daily by our staff. Any trash, refuse, etc. is maintained and provided for by our staff. I do not believe that the city, although they have the easement for community space, would have it within their budget to be able to provide those sources of services that we do provide. And the other point I forgot. Yes, and excuse me. The total purchase for this furniture is roughly $60,000. Anything that is broken, needs replacement, needs repair, is also at the expense of McNabb Properties Dagny Taggart. So I would encourage you, in the spirit of community, as was referenced in the letter, and as most of you have seen in person, the tables, chairs are used by virtually everyone: tourists, community members, city officials, members of other restaurants around our property. So if if you have any questions beyond that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Marie.
Your Honor, I'd like to clarify, only the round tables that look like round picnic tables with attached seating are the cities. We do not pay for or store the tables and chairs outside of Tuscan.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
So I think that, there's a conversation to be had. I think that the idea, at least in my opinion, of waiving a fee that is clearly applied to this, that the space was given to the city for the density, would send, at least in my opinion, the wrong message without going through the fee committee to decide for the entire city whether or not things are going to be applied equally across every member and every restaurant of the city.
Should we call the vote?
Right now, the motion is to waive.
Correct.
So, do you want me to amend the motion to do that?
I can't make a motion, but I would amend it
So
to
I could
send it-
amend the motion to send this to the fee committee and look for the opinion thereof.
I'm not going to second that because the fee committee is not set to meet again for
Till March.
March.
Okay. Councilor Bagley?
I'll try a crack at an amendment, and we'll see where it ends up. I amend the motion to include all such tables and chairs that are open and free to use to the public.
I support that.
I support that. Second. I'm confused on what your motion is.
So we're now extending all the fees of all, do we know what the amount of money that, there's a certain amount that we use to govern this practice? Councilor Bagley?
Your Honor, just doing the math quickly in my head, the vast majority of tables and chairs would be inside of a corral or pedlet because they're in a parking space. Those would continue to get fees. The only ones I can think of off the top of my head right now are the ones in front of what used to be Tuscan Market and the ones in Hearth.
I think popovers would apply.
Popovers is also is behind a fence.
They don't prohibit people from sitting.
French Cafe,
bread,
bagels,
public.
Yeah.
I think the other issue
Works.
is some people have paid the fee already.
Yeah, and
this
some
year.
people have
We
paid
put
the fee
benches out
already.
front.
We're going to
Those are-
return that fee? Like Maison Laver?
right.
I think if you're behind a fence, it sends a different
The
message.
series
But they're
Not
not.
behind a fence.
Popovers is.
No, but
Maison Laver.
the tables out front of the works are not the ones in the corridor.
behind
but
a rope.
Yes, hold on. There are several that are against the building, so we're talking about anything that is against a building besides my business and Elephantines, but like the Crepe Place, the Bagel Works. So I think that you also are, yeah.
Bagel Works is behind a rope. So the French
No,
Place
there are tables against
and the Puzzle Store are two other locations.
Well, why don't we just vote on motions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, for me, the issue is that this was a fee that applied. Tables and chairs went out regardless of whether or not they thought that a fee applied to them, and then requested, in the spirit of partnership or community, not to pay those fees. That is, I feel, the wrong way to do that. We should have requested an ordinance change and discussed that, and we've discussed the fee. Like, we went through outdoor dining, we continue to pay and have these fees applied through an entire year-long process. And now to say that they're not going to apply under one person requesting that they didn't think that they applied to them does not strike me as the process that we should use as a council to decide whether or not fees. And now we're discussing whether or not to just do away with all of the fees. Seems, again, not the process that we should use. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to point out that this particular location is new, and that the property, because of the easements, they probably thought that they were in a different category than a standard city sidewalk situation. So I don't think that, and I get the sense that it was not intentional by any means, that they were avoiding a fee. And I sense from the letter that we received that that it was a surprise that they would be charged that fee. So I don't attribute any ill will to the applicant on this, in this case.
Councilor Tabor.
Yeah, I would just add that, yes, this was received as part of a conditional use permit to get more density, and there's a benefit to the developer gets, but the developer, McNabb, didn't have to invest in all this seating and tables. They could have just left open space. I think the city's getting some public benefit here, and it's a tricky situation we have never encountered before. We have an easement to make it part of the public domain. It's still owned by McNabb Properties.
We do that for sidewalks as well, though, where we have an easement over sidewalks, even though that is not, other people can own portions of that, and yet we have an easement and put a sidewalk on other people's property. There's existing or examples of that within the city. Councilor Denton.
Just interested in the council's thoughts. If we amend the original motion to make this just for this year, that will give the fee committee time to review it next year. I'm seeing head shakes. So.
I think it's important that the rules that we have are set up to be followed, and we set those up. The community space was a part of the bargain. Putting tables and chairs on community space means that the fee applies, the fee that we spent a year talking about and separating out from the outdoor dining fee. To separate this out is at the moment of not paying the fees when you're recognizing that the fees are there, does not seem like the process that we should use.
Your Honor, I believe the motion was to waive it for 2024, so if you called the question on the current motion, that would be what you were voting on.
Your Honor, City Manager, just for a clarification, because I want to make sure that we're separating the two. For the outdoor fenced-off permits, that is from May to October, correct?
Correct.
And for encumbrance permits, those can be year-round as long as they are not in the way of any snow removal. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that is a big point we have to clarify, that this, as we saw wonderfully put out during the holiday market, that this can be, if determined by the property owner, these could be put out year-round versus anyone under the on-street or sidewalk encumbrance outdoor dining has a much more limited season. And I understand that these are for these are for community effect. Myself have a small restaurant. Before we had the outdoor permit, we paid for, of course it was a lot, wasn't 400, but we paid for public use benches, 8 or 9 of them at almost $100 a piece for community benefit as a much smaller location. And I think many businesses have done that for a really long time. So I understand the difference is the volume of size of this. But like mentioned before, Ceres Street, my Cafe, Von Sol, and other businesses have paid these fees over numerous amount of years before outdoor dining and encumbrances came into effect the way they are now. So for that standing alone, I can in good faith waive these fees. Do I think it should get back and we should reconvene the fees committee before the end of the year? Absolutely. And then we can adjust for next year and we can look at if there's a community benefit of a discount.
Could I please just make one more remark, please?
Yes.
In regards to this plaza, which is segregated in the easement, again, for snow removal and items of that nature that the city has to endure for Ceres Street and for your sidewalk, we endure all of the expense, snow removal, everything for that plaza. And in the easement, it does state that, you know, the grantor will bear all of the expense, and we are, but it's not just as simple as a couple tables and a sidewalk. It's a large plaza that is helping to invigorate and provide the community, much larger community, granted. And I think this did not present itself during the fee committee, despite us having had chairs out, as you said, Assistant Mayor, at the holiday season. So this is a bit different, and I would
argue that these fees are very well known, the same that you pay encumbrance fees for A-frame signs that you put out, the same that other retailers pay them. So I would argue that they are very well established fees. I also would, be wary of future developments that are looking for community benefit overall, and the potential that this could lead to a ripple effect of waiving that. I do think, as we all know, there is a fiscal responsibility within the city. I just think for this season, because one could say that we waived them for last year. So one could say that they were waived last year if they were not paid.
It was after the season, as you articulated,
Well,
the
the
May
season
through
does-
October.
I would say that the season doesn't end for this encumbrance. It's year-round, as pointed out.
Okay.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm thinking of another example we have in the city of a private property where we have outdoor tables on the sidewalk at row 34. And it's my understanding that we treat that differently as well. Because it is considered private, they're responsible for their own.
It's a private street.
It's a private street, but open to the public, because there's a public way easement, is my understanding, or am I incorrect there?
We'd have to confirm whether the street is the only street in downtown that is considered private, and as such, it has a whole different set of rules. I do not know.
So my follow-on there is, I don't think that we charge for the tables and chairs that row 34 puts out for their outdoor dining because it's on a private property, but that is a public access private property.
Did they gain, we could debate this in terms of, did they gain a benefit in density by providing that sidewalk to the city of Portsmouth with a conveyance and a community benefit there? I think that the issue that we have is tables and chairs being put out that were required to be paid. We had the conversation that came back and said, we don't want to pay this fee. We don't feel like we should pay the fee. And it gets to the city council. I think that we can certainly change this for next year, but the idea that says we're going to waive a fee that somebody doesn't want to pay after they found out that they were required to pay a fee, and that we can't go back and undo all of the fees that everybody has paid up until this point, it doesn't seem fair unless we do it on a go-forward basis and have the discussion around the fee committee. Councilor Dunn.
Your Honor, I call the question.
We'll do a roll call vote.
So which
we
question are
clarify
we
the
doing? Because
motion on
he
the floor?
did an amendment to include all of them.
That are not
He
separated by
seconded them.
offense.
Well, there's an amendment to refer to the fee committee.
Didn't get a second.
Didn't get a second.
Didn't get a second. The vote on the floor as it stands is a move to waive the sidewalk encumbrance fee for 63 tables and 186 chairs for McNabb Properties LTD for the city sidewalk adjacent to Penn Hollow Street for 2024.
Your Honor, I believe there's an amendment that was seconded by Councilor Denton.
Yeah, the amendment needs to be voted
Said not
first
to.
to include the others.
So what did you second, Councilor Denton?
I'll ask Councilor Bagley to restate his amendment.
To include tables and chairs on the sidewalks that are not separated by a fence or corral.
Are we giving the money back?
Yes.
How does that, do we write a check, city manager?
I've never had to figure that out. I'd have
Okay.
to ask the finance department.
Refund?
That's new territory.
Andrew left too early.
How,
Is it a credit
Well,
to
we-
the next year's outdoor dining fee? Or
But if we're
lack
Should we
thereof?
call the
No.
question and see if it even passes?
well, I think we should, before we call the question, should we have a good understanding of whether or not we're able to do what you're asking? Are we able to refund the monies to the people that have already paid the fee because a individual property owner has stated after putting out the chairs that they don't want to pay the fee and don't feel as though they should, and made a compelling argument around community? Marie, you were not called. Please, thank you.
Nathan might have an answer.
My only answer would be, it seems reasonable that we have documentation who paid and for what, and if it's appropriate for us to refund that, we'd just cut a check.
Okay. Roll call vote. And this is for all permitted sidewalk fees. We're going to, is that what I understand?
That are not inside a fence or corral.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Will this include all encumbrances, so A-frame signage, rack signage?
No,
and
just tables and chairs.
Just tables and chairs?
So this is to waive that fee?
Yes.
And refund.
Refund.
And refund.
Those who-
Can you read the motion exactly?
Restaurants refund their product.
We didn't actually, so Counselor Bagley, will you please make the motion again, and it will be voted on?
I amend, I think it was Councilor Denton's motion, I'm not sure, to waive and refund any fees that have been paid this year for tables and chairs that are located on sidewalks or city land, but are not separated by a fence or corral.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Assistant Mayor Kelly?
No?
Councilor Tabor?
No.
Councilor Cook?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Blaylock?
No.
Councilor Bagley?
Yes.
Councilor Moreau?
No.
Councilor Lombardi?
No.
Mayor McEachern?
No.
It fails 3-6.
Now, the question before us, to waive the fees for 63 tables and 186 chairs for McNabb Properties LTD for sidewalk adjacent to 60 Penn Hollow Street for 2024. Roll call vote.
Assistant Mayor Kelly?
No?
Councilor Tabor?
Yes.
Councilor Cook?
Yes.
Councilor Denton?
Yes.
Councilor Blaylock?
No.
Councilor Bagley?
Yes.
Councilor Moreau?
Yes.
Councilor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McEachern?
No.
Passes 6-3.
Next up, appointments to be considered. Appointment of Andrew Simonis as the Planning Board Representative to the Housing Committee. Appointment of Mary Carey Foley to the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Sister City Committee. Appointment of Robert F. Conard Jr. I didn't know he was a junior. To the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Sister City Committee. Those will come up at the next year's or next council's vote. Appointment to be voted is the appointment of Robert Sullivan to the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Sister City Committee.
Your Honor, I'm honored to move to appoint Robert Sullivan to the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Sister City Committee.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck, Bob. Councilor Cook and Councilor Moreau.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to request a report back by July 15th from a historic preservationist with experience in energy efficiency measures in historic districts on the impact the proposed changes on solar panel review to the Historic District Commission ordinance could have on the integrity of the Portsmouth Historic District and the Downtown National Register District.
Second.
Your Honor, this request is just coming forward because I think it's important that the council has all the information before making a final decision on any changes to an ordinance. And while we've talked quite a bit around this issue, we haven't actually asked for an opinion from a historic preservationist. And we're fortunate because the state has historic preservationists that are available that will give opinions for us. We also have historic preservationists that are volunteers for the city. They can give opinions for us. And it's really easy to reach out and get a basic opinion on these changes, especially since they're now very clearly defined.
Thank you. Your Honor, I overall would support this motion. My concern would be I would want to get a report back first. I understand the time sensitivity of it. If there would be any cost associated with hiring and or if the state had historic preservationists that would do this for free so before I fully can support this and agree to this, I need to know if there's a monetary effect on it. So if the motion makers are amenable, I would potentially do an amendment. Just think that over for a second during discussion.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask, just to add some clarifying information? We sought in writing what we had received verbally from the state's Division of Historical Resources, and when my colleague Peter Britz got a written confirmation that this will not affect these items, it's my understanding this representative of New Hampshire DHR spoke also to Councilor Cook. So I'm not sure that they're necessary, that we would have to identify funding, for which we currently don't have a source. And I cannot, as from a staff perspective, guarantee we could get a report back available by July 15th.
Councilor Bagley?
I was just going to ask if there was time enough.
What? What'd you say?
Well, the
So
city
we've
manager
asked
just explained that the timeline's tight.
Who did we ask in the state?
New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources.
And their statement again was?
No, these changes will not affect these items, meaning eligibility.
Councilor Cook, a question?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to highlight that I had a wonderful conversation last week with the state on this very issue, and was given an opinion. And I think it's important that the council receives that opinion from the state, because I can give the opinion here, but people don't necessarily want to hear me giving that opinion. They want to hear historic preservationists giving that opinion. And when we initially sought that request, we sought it before the changes were made in the last reading. And so I think that that's also important, that we know if there's any impact, the timing of this, how that ultimately could impact the integrity of the district. And when I use the word integrity, that is the language that is used in the National Preservation Guidelines. So that's where that language comes from. I just would think it's important for the council to be well informed before making decisions.
So Councilor Cook, who did you speak to at the state?
I spoke to a woman in the preservation office who handles the CLG status for communities within the state.
I think we spoke to the same person, Your Honor. Her name's Brandy Laughlin.
Yes.
Okay, could we get maybe could we turn it into just a statement from Ms. Laughlin?
Sure. I can submit this email that she provided to Peter, to the council.
Okay. Councilor Blaylock?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I mean, I certainly want to make sure we do this right. However, I feel like we're kind of reaching for the opinion we want to hear on this point. Like I said before, I had 3 goals when the solar amendment. I didn't want to waste money or time. I wanted to be easily understood, and I wanted it to be easier for residents to put solar on their homes in the historic district. I also think we should be leaders on this, so I don't necessarily love asking someone else what we should be doing. I think we should lead. And I think we know the problems that Portsmouth has with climate change. It affects us more than it affects the rest of the state. So I really think we should be leaders on this. I don't know why we should be asking just a historic preservationist opinion. If we're going to ask them, then we should ask like a solar expert too. And I mean, like, where does it stop? And I don't think that's the right thing to be spending taxpayer money on.
Any other, Councilor Tabor?
I would not support this because, number one, we have fresh information tonight from the city manager. Number two, I think the question I would ask is, if we're more liberal with solar panels and that may not follow some guidelines that preservationists want, we're stepping forward with a policy, and it's not clear to me that there would be, what the consequences would be. You know, if anyone reviewing grants from our historic district suddenly encounters the fact that we have solar panels, I don't think that would undo the historic value and history of 50 years of a historic district commission and a historic district.
Councilor Denton, did you have your hand up?
Just quick comment. I think that Resident Joe Colorado spoke well when he said that the amendment which we'll be voting on for second reading is minimally visible solar in the HDC.
Good. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. The whole reason that I'm asking for this is that we can sit here and talk about how we don't necessarily understand what impact this will have. And the whole reason I'm asking for a historic preservationist to comment on it is because we want to know the impact that it could potentially have before we make decisions like this. And so it's about making sure the council is well informed about the potential impact over the lifetime of changes that could be put in place.
So I just want to just quickly maybe clarify something. The changes that are going in place were the changes that were suggested by the HDC and Planning Board, be it the change that made those from administrative approval to a staff approval, still based on the guidelines that currently exist within the HDC. Like those are the current suggestions of minimally visible.
Your Honor, those were changes that the HDC was willing to bring forward as a compromise. They were not their current guidelines. So I think that that's really important to remember. This was the compromise that the HDC brought forward.
And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out who we're concerned of. Is it the HDC's and Planning Board's compromises, which we are moving forward to second reading?
Your Honor, I'm asking for an opinion on the changes that were made that would be coming for second reading. Yes.
All right. I think it's happy to get the person from the state to, I guess, formally introduce that as a public record. I guess the concern that I have, it would, like the changes that the HDC supported, you know, to question them as a body of whether or not they can, because they made those suggestions that we adopted.
Your Honor, the HDC did not make the suggestions we adopted. We amended the suggestions that came from the HDC intentionally to remove the authority of the HDC to review and put that within the purview of a staff member who has no training in historic preservation. So they aren't the changes that the HDC requested. They are the council's amendments to the changes that the HDC requested.
I would object to the councilor's characterization of staff.
So I guess we disagree on whether or not it is the changes, the recommendations on the guidelines we agree with. The guidelines that the HDC and the Planning Board came to us with, we accepted those.
Yes.
Councilor Baggy.
Your Honor, I'll take a crack at an amendment. I would recommend that instead of reaching out to historic preservationist, the city manager include the letter from the historic preservationist in the next meeting packet.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Councilor Cook?
I'm just curious on the date of that letter.
It's June 14th
Okay.
of this year.
All right. Any further comment on that? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
1, 2, 3 opposed. Motion carries 6-3. And on the motion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. All right, no grants or donations.
What did we just vote on?
We voted on the amended motion to include the city manager's email correspondence with the, what was her name?
Historic preservation.
Historic preservation was from the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources.
The CLG coordinator for that body.
So then why did we take a second motion?
We amended the first motion.
So you basically just got rid of it and changed it, so that's why I'm wondering.
We amended based on the effort to have a preservationist review, include the email for the next council meeting of the city manager's correspondence.
And Your Honor, if I could just expound on that a bit further, this will give the council a chance to see this email in the packet, and if we have questions about the email or we want more information, we would have that chance to ask for it at the next meeting.
Any other questions? Approvals of grants and donations, there are none. City manager informational items.
Your Honor, first up would be a verbal update on the community policing facility by our DPW Director, Peter Rice.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Peter Rice, Director of Public Works. At our last work session, we received some really good feedback relative to the goals and desires from the City Council as well as residents. And, the major takeaways were, try to maximize the use of the existing building, try to minimize the impacts to the viewscape and the front of the building, and try to shift as much if possible, out back. To that end, we've met with our team, and we've spent time continuing to explore other alternatives. And we haven't come up with anything specific at this point, but suffice it to say that we are challenging each other to come up with more creative solutions that will be potentially more acceptable, or at least gain more support. In addition, we heard the desire to revisit the staffing needs evaluation for the PD. And to that end, we've reached out to a number of firms and are starting to explore scope of work associated with that. So that is additional information that we would like to be bringing forward as we move forward. That'll be a parallel track. The work that we're doing to explore options, to refine alternatives will continue. So that is where we're at the moment.
Questions for Peter? Councilor Tabor.
Peter, wasn't there a master plan for space use some years back? Actually, I think it was LaValle and Benziger, to move the police department into where the city clerk and appraisal is now, tax appraisal, and then create more space behind the 1895 building. So it offered the opportunity to utilize a little bit of City Hall to allow for the future expansion of the police station.
You're correct. It was 2014 that phased approach was reviewed. What that entailed was building a point of service addition out front where the current school board conference room is. And so there would be, as well as some additions out in the back of the building. The clerk's office and tax collector, the assessors would all have to be relocated as well. So there would be a number of enabling projects prior to being able to drill down into and build the police station. This is an option that we're dusting off as well and saying, okay, is there a variation of that, or is there something associated with that that could be salvaged and used? So those are part of the mix at this time.
Would that run into the problem of IBC 4, International Building Code 4, hurricane-proof structure?
We'd have to define what portions of the police force would need to be in those Category 4 spaces, and then we'd have to have an addition. That option did envision a 10,000 square foot addition out the back of the building for the police. So we would envision if that was the option we were pursuing, likely those functions would be located in that space.
But to possibly have dispatch there.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Next is a quick update from the most recent Peace Development Authority Board of Directors meeting held last Thursday, June 13th. There was robust attendance and public comment on the allocation of ARPA money that is flowing through the state for a total of 3 projects at 2 locations, 2 at the Rye Harbor Marine area, which is revetment work to shore up areas damaged in the storms of January of this year, along with fixes to the retail platform, along with the replacement building for the Portsmouth Fish Pier. The PDA passed the FY25 operating and maintenance budget with a forecast looking out through 26 through 28. Of note would be that revenues are projected to increase by 4.5% and expenses are expected to increase by 4.6%. We approved a right of entry for American Cruise Lines. You've heard much discussion of their coastal cruise vessels coming into Portsmouth Harbor. They will have 4 dockings this year, 2 in July, 1 in August, 1 in October. They will be here for roughly 24 hours at a clip. And lastly, we will be updating the Tradesport's Intersection Improvement Implementation Plan, which will better and in a more updated fashion integrate with the local jurisdictions, namely Greenland, Newington, Portsmouth, and New Hampshire DOT. There is no July meeting of the PDA, so there'll be another report in August. So next up is the status of the Sherburne property RFQ. As mentioned, we have received 8 letters of interest for the redevelopment of the property. Just today, we had an internal review meeting held by staff members from Planning and Sustainability, including our housing navigator, staff from Public Works, staff from our inspection department, and staff from Economic and Community Development. The review that they took identified 4 that are worthy of moving on for interviews. Those 4 have not yet been notified, nor has a date for those interviews been set. We're working around the holiday that is upcoming to schedule those as quickly as possible. And lastly is the status of the South Meeting House RFP. We are happy to report that it was issued today, and responses are due back Wednesday, July 17th. And questions, although they will be answered on a rolling basis, are due no later than July 9th. And we look forward to hosting tours for interested parties in 2 different time slots. The first one will be next Wednesday, June 26th, from 9 to 11 a.m., and the following Wednesday, July 1st, from 1 to 3 p.m. And the RFP is out on the street, and we hope to get lots of interest. And so we will provide the next update at the August 5th meeting once we receive responses.
Councilor Moreau.
I'm just curious on the RFQ for the Sherburne.
Yep.
After the interviews, what would be the steps after that? Because I keep getting a lot of questions.
Right,
asked.
and that's fair. And what we want to solicit from folks is what do you have in mind so that we can share it with you. So the idea would bring what we have uncovered and discovered and had presented to you for your formation of how do we move forward.
Sorry, just to touch on that. We would like to, I would make an informal request to make sure that that also goes to the Housing Committee, so that the Housing Committee, the Affordable Blue Ribbon Housing Committee can make a recommendation or any input to the council for the council to also use in their deliberations.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Your Honor. A question for the city manager. I looked
Sure.
at the 215 pages of the submittals, and I thought there were 8 decent, although definitely some came out stronger than others. When will we know who the selected entities are?
That could be at the July 15th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
When we could certainly give an update and most likely explain how we like the process to unfold with your involvement along with the Housing Committee.
Counselor Denton.
I was excited about it. Figured out the internet.
Figured out the internet. All right. World's your oyster. All right. Anything else under, thank you, City Manager. Anything under miscellaneous?
Your Honor, I just want to say it's like the good old days.
I'd just like to congratulate Kiwanis on winning the city championship today, Little League. It was a hard-fought game. I'm one of the coaches of Rotary, and we hit a grand slam in the third inning, tied it, and we ended up losing 5-6 in extra innings. So it was a very exciting game, but a good game for Portsmouth baseball, and just want to thank all the kids and parents involved. So thank you.
Anything else? Counselor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to recognize our lacrosse teams.
Yeah.
We are very fortunate here in Portsmouth to be state champs across the board. I know that school is out now, so that makes it much more difficult to have them all here, but I just wanted to recognize them. And the second thing that I wanted to also say is I'm hoping everyone joins me this Saturday at Pride. It would be great to have a nice city council representation for the Pride Parade.
Any other miscellaneous? Thank you, Counselor Cook. I have one. If you don't know, this is Valerie French's last meeting. She's chosen to retire July 12th. There's no days off in retirement, but thank you from everyone in the city of Portsmouth, certainly in this building, but the broader city. You have done the hard work of democracy, certainly, not easy in terms of writing down everything that comes out of our mouths, which is sometimes illegible even coming out. But you manage to keep great minutes. But what you do in the clerk's office, allowing people the opportunity to speak at the ballot box, and all the work that you've put into that over 15 years, we are indebted to you and everybody that lives in Portsmouth and that has exercised their power to vote, and even those that chose not to. You have been there answering and guiding those questions. So we thank you and we wish you an amazing retirement, and thank you for everything you've done.
And everyone.
Didn't expect it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we didn't put it on the agenda.
Thank you, Val.
All right, well, I'd wait a motion to adjourn and go Celtics.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.